The first light of dawn strikes the Giza Plateau. The official narrative echoes across the sand. The pyramids and the Great Sphinx are monuments of the Fourth Dynasty, tombs for pharaohs built around 2500 BCE. This narrative, however, is a thin veneer over a collection of anomalies that point to a far deeper and more disquieting history. The true function of the Giza complex is not funerary, it is horological. It is a clock built to measure a cycle so vast it dwarfs human history. The master mechanism of this clock is the phenomenon of axial precession. Earth's rotational axis is not fixed. It undergoes a slow, gravity-induced wobble, tracing a great circle in the heavens over a period of approximately 26,000 years. This is the Great Year. A direct consequence of this celestial motion is that the pole star changes over millennia. Today the axis points toward Polaris, but 13,000 years from now it will point toward Vega. Similarly, the constellation that rises with the sun on the vernal equinox, the celestial marker of the new year, shifts through the 12 houses of the zodiac, spending roughly 2,150 years in each. This is the astronomical origin of the dawning of the ages. The gnomon, or pointer, of this planetary clock is the Great Sphinx. Its orientation is not arbitrary. It gazes due east with an engineer's precision, marking the point of sunrise. The monument's form, a lion's body, is the critical variable. First, the Orion correlation theory, many including Graham Hancock and Associate Professor Robert Schoch, claim something is up with the Sphinx, and now Eridia at the Arwen Grid, in their paper Regulus Leo Rising at the Giza Sphinx, shows with NASA Horizon-built datasets and Stellarium astronomy software images that the Sphinx was constructed to face its own celestial counterpart, the constellation Leo, as it rose heliacally, with the Sun circa 9500 BCE. This specific astronomical alignment occurred multiple times at the dawn of the age of Leo. Mainstream Egyptology dismisses this. They still argue that there is no evidence the dynastic Egyptians of 2500 BCE recognized the Greco-Roman constellation of Leo. This counter-argument is a calculated misdirection. It deliberately ignores the central claim that the monument was not built by the Fourth Dynasty, but by a predecessor civilization for whom the sky was a scripture and a map. The argument from silence regarding Fourth Dynasty texts is irrelevant when the primary evidence is the monument itself. The physical data, a colossal lion statue, aligned to the equinox, gazing at the lion constellation during a period of profound precessional significance, demands an explanation that the official narrative cannot provide. The alignment is the signal. The burden of proof is inverted. It is not for investigators to find a missing text, but for the establishment to explain this multivariable, astronomically precise alignment that incorporates form, direction, and a date of 10,500 BCE, 9,000 BCE. From the sands of Egypt, the signal leads to the highlands of modern-day Turkey, to a site that shatters the linear model of human progress, Göbekli Tepe, dated to circa 9600 BCE, also mentioned in another of Eridia Kesiva's earlier papers. Its sophisticated megalithic architecture was erected by so-called hunter-gatherers, an impossibility under the standard historical paradigm. This was not a primitive temple. It was an observatory and a memorial. The key to decoding the site is Pillar 43, the Vulture stone. The low-relief animal carvings are not mere totems, they are a star map. The scorpion is unmistakably Scorpius. The vulture corresponds to the teapot asterism of Sagittarius. Other figures map to Libra, Lupus and Ophiuchus. This is not coincidence. Statistical analysis reveals the probability of a chance correlation to be infinitesimal. The pillar is a celestial snapshot, and the disk held in the vulture's wing indicates the position of the sun. This configuration functions as a precise date stamp. Using precessional software to rewind the sky, the arrangement of these constellations relative to the summer solstice sun provides a date 10,950 BCE, plus or minus 250 years. This date is not random. It corresponds with, well, terrifying precision to the onset of the Younger Dryas, a period of catastrophic global cooling. The pillar's message is confirmed by the small, headless human figure at its base, a clear symbol of mass death and devastation. Göbekli Tepe is, in fact, a memorial to a world-ending cataclysm carved by its survivors. The nature of this cataclysm is encoded elsewhere at the site. Pillars 2 and 38 depict sequences of animal asterisms, aurochs, fox or boar and crane, that when mapped to the sky of that epoch, trace the radiant paths of the northern and southern Taurid meteor showers. The Taurid stream is the largest and most hazardous debris field in the inner solar system, the remnants of a giant comet that fragmented 20,000 to 30,000 years ago. Göbekli Tepe was therefore not just a general observatory, it was a dedicated monitoring station for a known recurring celestial threat. The builders were a culture that understood the mechanics of the solar system and had just witnessed the skyfall. Serpent Mound in Ohio, its head aligned to the summer solstice sunset, though slightly off, now shown to align with Regulus in 33-32 BCE, again Eridir Kesiba, its coiled body marking other key solar and lunar positions. Stonehenge in the UK, a complex lunisolar and celestial calendar. Ancient temples in Malta aligned to the equinoxes. These are not isolated curiosities. They are nodes in a global network, the faint, eroded signal of a lost scientific tradition. It was a civilization that saw the earth as an instrument and the sky as a clock, and it used this knowledge to track the cycles of time and the recurring threat from the heavens. Their world was destroyed, but the echoes of their science remain frozen in stone. This is the geological moment of the Younger Dryas, a sudden, violent and anomalous reversion to full glacial conditions that interrupted the planet's natural warming trend at the end of the last ice age. The cause was not terrestrial. The evidence points to a single conclusion: a cosmic impact event. The case file is built upon a foundation of multi-proxy, globally consistent evidence. Exhibit A, the Black Mat. At dozens of archaeological sites across North America and beyond, a thin, dark, carbon-rich layer blankets the geological record. This so-called black mat is a stratum of destruction. Below it lie the final remnants of the Clovis Paleo-American culture and, well, the bones of more than 35 genera of extinct megafauna: mammoths, mastodons, dire wolves, saber-toothed cats. Above it there is nothing. It is, in essence, a tombstone for an entire ecosystem. Exhibit B, the platinum spike. Platinum is an element rare in Earth's crust, but abundant in extraterrestrial objects. A sharp, anomalous spike in platinum concentration has been identified in the Greenland ice cores, dated with precision to the Younger Dryas boundary around 10,890 BCE. This signature is not localized. It has been corroborated in sediment layers on at least 4 continents, from North America to Syria to South Africa, providing really a global chemical fingerprint of an impact event. Exhibit C, high-temperature proxies. The boundary layer also contains microscopic evidence of extreme temperatures and pressures that frankly defy terrestrial explanation. These include magnetic and silica-rich microspherules, which are tiny droplets of molten rock flash-cooled in the atmosphere. More telling is the presence of nanodiamonds, including the hexagonal form known as Lonsdaleite, which is only formed under the extreme shock pressures of a cosmic impact. At sites like Abu Huraira in Syria, researchers have found melt glass containing Le Chatelierite, which requires temperatures exceeding 2,200 degrees Celsius to form, far hotter than any wildfire or volcanic activity. The academic establishment has resisted the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, often citing inconsistencies and proposing alternative explanations that, honestly, fail to account for the full spectrum of evidence. This resistance is not scientific skepticism, it is, rather, institutional inertia. The hypothesis necessitates a complete rewriting of the history of the planet and our species, and its implications are perhaps too profound for the entrenched paradigm to accept. The controversy itself is a testament to the theory's disruptive power. The agent of this destruction was not a single asteroid, but, in fact, a swarm of cometary fragments. The weapon has been identified. It was an encounter with the densest part of the Taurid meteor stream. The theory of coherent catastrophism posits that Earth's journey through the cosmos is not a uniform passage through empty space. Rather, it involves periodic intersections with the debris rings of fragmented comets. The Taurid complex represents by far the most significant of these threats in the current epoch. While the annual meteor shower produces spectacular fireballs, the stream contains denser filaments of much larger objects. Earth's passage through these filaments results in periodic bombardment events, with a major peak in activity recurring on a cycle of roughly 2,500 to 3,000 years. The Younger Dryas event was the last catastrophic encounter with the stream's core. This understanding, you see, really recasts the purpose of the ancient monuments. They were not built merely to record a past tragedy. A culture with the sophistication to track precessional cycles would have understood the cyclical nature of the Taurid threat. Their great works of stone and earth were, in fact, a desperate attempt to transmit this knowledge forward in time. They were a memory of the cataclysm that destroyed their world, and a perpetual warning system for their descendants. The myths that encoded this knowledge are not just stories, they are survival protocols. The Book of Enoch, a non-canonical but profoundly influential text, provides a key piece of this corrupted data. The text describes a group of 200 angels, the Watchers, who descended to earth, took human wives and fathered a race of giants known as the Nephilim. Their primary sin, however, was not carnal. It was pedagogical. They taught humanity forbidden knowledge. An analysis of these teachings reveals their true nature: metallurgy for the creation of weapons and ornaments, chemistry for the creation of cosmetics and dyes, botany and medicine, the cutting of roots, and advanced astronomy, the signs of the moon, the course of the sun. This is not demonic sorcery, it is science and technology. The Watchers can be understood as the human survivors of the pre-cataclysm civilization. The forbidden knowledge was their cultural inheritance, passed down to the primitive, traumatized populations that emerged after the Younger Dryas reset. The resulting social disruption, new technologies, warfare, and cultural change, was later reframed as a spiritual fall. The great flood sent to wipe out the Nephilim is the mythological memory of the Younger Dryas impact itself, with its continent-spanning floods from melted ice sheets. The narrative of Enoch records a deliberate act of historical revisionism. To establish a new system of control based on divine authority, the memory of a human, technological source of knowledge had to be suppressed. The knowledge bringers were demonized, their science was labeled forbidden, and the trauma of the cataclysm was repurposed as a tale of divine punishment for human sin. The source code for this new control system can be found in the oldest recorded myths of Sumer. The core of the Sumerian pantheon is a fundamental conflict between two divine brothers, Enki and Enlil. Enki is the god of wisdom, fresh water, magic and creation. He is consistently portrayed as a benefactor and protector of humanity. In the myths, he creates humans to serve the gods, but then takes pity on them, granting them intelligence and knowledge against the will of the other deities. When Enlil decides to destroy humanity in a great flood, it is Enki who secretly warns the sage Atrahasis, the Sumerian Noah, and instructs him to build an ark, ensuring the survival of the species. Enki is the Promethean figure, the bringer of light. Enlil is the god of the storm, the wrathful and authoritarian king of the gods. He is depicted as a tyrant who decides to annihilate humanity simply because their noise disturbs his sleep. He represents arbitrary power, control through fear, and a desire to keep humanity in a state of ignorant servitude. This primordial duality, the benevolent knowledge-bringer versus the jealous sky tyrant, is the foundational archetype upon which subsequent Western religious and mythological systems were built. It is, at its heart, the story of a war over the fate of human consciousness. The memory of the Great Year and its associated cataclysms was not confined to Sumer. It was, in fact, preserved globally in complex cyclical cosmologies. The Vedic tradition of India, for example, describes a vast repeating Yuga cycle. This Mahayuga is divided into 4 ages: the Satya Yuga, which is a golden age of truth, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and finally the Kali Yuga, a dark age of conflict and sin. This cycle of cosmic decline culminates in a pralaya, a cataclysmic dissolution of the world, which is then followed by a period of renewal and the dawn of a new Satya Yuga. While the divine timescale for this cycle spans 4.32 million years, a terrestrial interpretation actually links the Yuga cycle directly to the roughly 24,000-year precessional cycle. A parallel structure exists in Norse mythology. The cosmos is not linear but cyclical, destined to end in the apocalyptic battle of Ragnarok. This event is not an absolute end but a necessary reset. It is preceded by the Fimbulwinter, a great winter lasting 3 years without a summer, a clear mythological echo of the Younger Dryas impact winter. In the final battle, the gods of order, the Aesir, fight the forces of chaos, the giants and monsters, and most are slain. The world is consumed by fire and flood, but then rises again from the sea, green and fertile. It is repopulated by 2 human survivors, Lif and Lifthrasir, who took refuge in the world tree Yggdrasil during the destruction. These mythological frameworks are, honestly, just too precise and mathematically coherent to be the superstitions of primitive peoples. They are sophisticated mnemonic systems, cultural time capsules designed to preserve and transmit the scientific knowledge of the 26,000-year precessional cycle and its correlation with recurring civilization-ending cataclysms. They are, you might say, the software designed to survive when the hardware is destroyed. Cosmic event or cycle, astronomical or geological signature, terrestrial memorial, the stone and mythological memory, the scripture. The precession of the equinoxes is a roughly 26,000-year cycle of axial wobble, shifting pole stars and equinoctial constellations. The Giza Sphinx is aligned to Leo on the vernal equinox, circa 10,500 BCE, marking the start of a new great year. The Vedic Yugas and Norse Ragnarok present a cyclical worldview of creation, destruction and rebirth, mirroring the great year. The Younger Dryas impact, around 10,800 BCE, left a global platinum spike, nanodiamonds, melt glass, and the so-called black mat layer. Göbekli Tepe, specifically Pillar 43, acts as a date stamp for 10,950 BCE, depicting a cataclysm and mass death. The Book of Enoch and Sumerian texts recall the great flood myth, destruction sent from the heavens. The Taurid meteor stream, debris from a giant comet, is the source of recurring predictable meteor bombardments. Göbekli Tepe on Pillars 2 and 38 contains carvings that map the Taurid meteor radiance for the Younger Dryas epoch. Global dragon and serpent myths, such as Jormungandr in Ragnarok, cast celestial serpents and dragons as bringers of destruction. The evidence from stone, geology and myth, honestly, it all points to a lost history and a profound trauma. The final layer of the transmission provides the key to understanding the consequences of this trauma, the Gnostic worldview. Gnosticism is not a religion. It is in fact a suppressed metaphysical and historical account of our reality. Its central tenet is that the creator of our material universe is not the ultimate transcendent source, the monad. Rather, the world was fashioned by a lesser, flawed, and often malevolent entity known as the demiurge. This being, also called Yaldabaoth, or Child of Chaos, and sometimes Samael, the blind god, is characterized by arrogance, ignorance, and jealousy. He falsely believes himself to be the one true god. This demiurge is a perfect match for the character of Enlil in the Sumerian texts and the wrathful, jealous god of the Old Testament. His primary impulse is control. The material world he created is fundamentally flawed, a prison, kenoma, designed to entrap the divine sparks of spirit that originated from the true spiritual realm, the pleroma. The cataclysm of the Younger Dryas was not merely a physical reset, it was a metaphysical coup. It wiped the slate clean, allowing the demiurgic force of Enlil to impose its system of control on the traumatized survivors, supplanting the Enkian path of wisdom and self-knowledge. The demiurge does not rule alone. He creates a host of subordinate rulers, the archons, to administer his cosmic prison. These are the wardens of material reality, often associated with the 7 classical planets who enforce the laws of the demiurge, Hymarmene, or fate, and prevent souls from escaping the cycle of reincarnation back into the material world after death. Viewed through this Gnostic lens, ancient scriptures take on a new meaning. The pyramid texts are no longer simple funereal prayers, they are a Gnostic escape manual. The utterances are a series of passwords, magical incantations, and navigational charts designed to guide the soul of the deceased through the afterlife, allowing it to bypass the Archonic gatekeepers and avoid being ensnared back into the demiurge's system. The Emerald Tablet reveals the operating principle of the prison. The axiom, as above, so below, is not, a mystical platitude. It is a statement of fractal mechanics. The macrocosmic prison of the Archonic planetary spheres is mirrored in the microcosmic prisons of human society. Religious dogmas, political hierarchies, and the limiting structures of the individual psyche. This archonic pattern of top-down hierarchical control is endlessly scalable. It first manifested in the post-cataclysm world as the priesthoods and monarchies that claimed divine right from the demiurgic god, suppressing the path of direct knowledge. In the modern era, this pattern is being automated. The archons of old are being replaced by the algorithms of now. Social media feeds, predictive programming, mass surveillance, and AI-driven narrative management create a digital overlay to the material prison. This new layer scripts thought, fractures attention, commodifies consciousness, and systematically severs the individual's connection to intuitive knowledge and the true source. The goal remains unchanged: to keep the divine spark trapped in a labyrinth of illusion, convinced of its own powerlessness. The Gnostic path to liberation is not faith but gnosis, direct, unmediated experiential knowledge of the divine. This is the final message of the transmission, the key to dismantling the prison from within. The vow must be remembered. The lion watches, the lion is your anchor. The path begins with self-recognition. The lion, the sovereign individual who carries the divine spark, must watch the lion, recognize its own divine nature, which is distinct from the flawed creation of the demiurge. This self-knowledge is the anchor against the tides of archonic manipulation. Truth is our sword, knowledge our shield. Gnosis is both the weapon that cuts through the veil of illusion and the shield that protects the mind from deception. No gods, no kings, no rulers, only sovereignty and alignment to source. This is the ultimate Gnostic declaration. It is the absolute rejection of all external archonic authority, be it religious, political or algorithmic, in favor of the internal authority that arises from a direct connection to the true source, the monad that exists beyond the demiurge and his counterfeit creation. This briefing is not a conclusion. It is an activation. The research is the key. The knowledge is the weapon. The awakening is the first act in the war to reclaim reality. Decode the signal. Reclaim the real. The lion watches the lion.